Hey, what's up, masters? Welcome to another episode today of Path to Mastery podcast. Actually, Path to Sales Mastery podcast. You guys have probably heard me say that for years, Path to Mastery, but now we are officially Path to Sales Mastery. And today we have Mr. Michael Tucker with us, who is with Funnel Pros. What's going on, Michael?
Man, Dave, so excited, man, to be on here with you and your audience today. My mission is to bring as much value as possible. I'm excited.
All right, good. I love it, man. And I was sharing with you before we started recording that I get tons and tons of requests from different agencies, and there's so many. Unless I see a topic that really catches my attention now, like I want to know more about that, then I usually just ignore them. So your topic on virtual events caught my attention, and I'm just grateful you're here with us today, man.
All right, awesome. Well, I'm glad you allowed us to come on, and I'm gonna definitely try my best. So let's jump right on in.
Talk to us about how you got started first off in virtual events.
Love it, yeah. And so the story starts back about 5 or 6 years ago. I was a newly newly married college student, right? So you can imagine as a college student and someone who just gotten married, probably didn't have much of a financial stability about them, right? And that was me. I didn't really have much cash on me. I didn't know what I was going to school. I was one of those. I kind of knew I wanted to be in entrepreneurship and business, but my man, I didn't know what I wanted to do whenever I got out of school. So I was one of those that unfortunately came out the other side saying, "What am I going to do now?" And so what happened was I started going into anything and everything that could make me money. I was trying it. And so any ad you would see on Facebook, I was trying e-commerce, stock trading. I even started a kettle corn wholesaling company. It's kind of
Wow.
laughable now, but yeah, so I was trying everything, but nothing seemed to work. I was like, why in the world is nothing working? I was banging my head against the wall. And one day, one of my friends came up to me and said, "Hey, you should try real estate." Now, today we're not going to talk about real estate, okay? I promise you, I'm not going to bore you about that.
I
But
love
he
real
said you should.
estate, man. I am a real
Yeah,
estate
I'm
agent.
in.
I
I'm
don't
still in real estate.
Yeah, me
So,
too.
so he said, "Hey, but why don't you get in real estate?" And he was like, "I'm starting this new education and coaching company where I'll teach you how for the past 15, 20 years I've been flipping houses and buying rentals." And I'm like, trying everything anyway. I might as well try this. But there was one problem. If you guys remember at the beginning of the story, I was in college and I just got married. I had no money. And so I told him, I was like, "I'm cool with getting coaching, brother, but I got no money." And so what we did is we came together, and this is where my marketing and virtual event career began. We came together and came up with this game plan. And he said, "Michael, how about you come and you work in my business and I'll coach you for free?" He's like, "I'm not asking for full time or anything, but you come in, just help a little bit, run maybe some, build out some like graphics, some websites." I didn't know how to do any of that. I knew a little bit just from like starting my own businesses in the past. I knew how to use Canva, I knew how to use those things. And so I said, "Okay, let's do it. So you coach me in real estate and I will jump in and try my best to help you grow your business." So I started reading the books. I started going to the events and just doing my best to learn marketing and sales for my new employer, part-time employer, as he coached me in this real estate niche. And so, long story short, if we were to fast forward, we hit our head a few times, but we ended up growing his real estate education company to $750,000 in 10 months. Now, for me, that was tremendous. That was like I was making $20,000 a year. And so I'll never forget the first virtual event. Little side note there, the events were how we got to that
Yeah.
number in income. Um, that I'll never forget the first event. We made $30,000 off of a very small event. It was like a webinar, and I was like, we just made in one day, or I can't, maybe it was like a couple days time frame of promotion, what I made in a year. And so it
Mm.
was that moment in my life that I said, Dave, I told myself, I was like, this virtual event thing, this digital marketing thing is crazy. I'm going to perfect it. And so that was about 5 years ago. ish. And ever since then, I've just committed to it, and just kind of just dove right on in on learning it, and I love it. And
Awesome.
so, if you can't tell, I'm passionate.
Yeah, man, I see that. So were you like how did you drive traffic to your friend's company or how like his real estate? How did you
Love it.
earn 750,000? Like tell
Great,
us
great
about that.
question.
What was the process for doing that?
Love it. So you guys know the end result, right? You know what we made, but let's talk about how we got there, right? And so as I started jumping into helping him grow his business, there was a problem that we had. He had no audience, meaning he had a few hundred people on Facebook, your mom, your dad, your cousin, he had a few hundred people there. He didn't have big Instagram. He didn't have email lists. I think our email list at the time of me jumping in was like 100 people, 200 people. So we had to get creative. We had to say, what do we have and what do we don't have? Well, we had a good product. Obviously, I was getting results. He was coaching me. I started flipping houses and I started getting some okay results myself after 6 months, 12 months. But we didn't have an audience. We didn't have the eyeballs. So what we did is we said, hey, what's the most cost efficient way of getting in front of our target audience? And we said, why don't we leverage other people's audience? So for us, what we did is, and this is one of my favorite plays that we still run to this day, is joint partnerships. Now it's easier said than done, right? I'm not going to say that this is the quick fix for everybody and it's going to be something fast because it does take building relationships. But what we did is we went out and found individuals who had audiences that complemented ours. So we were in the real estate niche, Dave. So what we did is we said, hey, who has an audience that would benefit from our message? One of the first individuals that we partnered with was a wealth management professional. So what he did was this individual taught people how to budget their money, how to reallocate funds, things of that nature, just to live better financially free lives. And so, but the thing that guy didn't teach was investing. He taught how to get your money right and like how to stop overspending, where to direct your cash, like how to keep track of your budget. But he didn't teach investing. So what we did is we said, hey, we have this amazing program, this amazing event. How about we come and we just run this event to your audience? We did that, and the first event made, I think, right around $100,000, and that was one of our first partnerships. So I always tell people is start building relationships with people who could complement your niche. So just making this up in the top of my head,
Mm,
if you are in insurance sales, I use insurance a lot because we actually have a few insurance clients. But if you're in insurance sales, right? If you are, I'm just making this up, life insurance, ask yourself what other niches would benefit from my services. It could be, I'm just making this up, could be health coaches, health professionals, right? It could be, there's many different avenues there, but so start thinking who has the audience that I need. And Dave, so that's how we grew at the beginning was simply we leveraged 3 to 4 other people's audiences and did it consistently. And
got
we
it.
didn't have
So
have to
you
pay for
come
anything
to
else.
me, we have audiences that can complement each other, right? What do you say to me? Hey, David, I like, what does that look like? I want to run a virtual event.
Yeah.
How do I benefit from this, from you coming to me? What's the benefit to me?
Great question. It has to be a win, win, win. It has to be a win for your audience, first of all, right? That's the first thing we
Yeah.
want to do. We want to make sure we come in, and I'll talk about how it's structured. But so what we did is we said, hey, we want to make this so valuable that people come in and their lives are changed through this event. We're going to present an offer at the end, but we want them to come be like, thank you, David, for bringing in Michael to teach because he just changed my perspective on everything. So we said, hey, we have this amazing product. We crafted it. It was amazing. We went to it needed to be very, very valuable to the partner, which would be you. And so that's a personal conversation. So we went to him and said, hey, we have this amazing event. We'd love to run it to your audience. Like, what would it take to make this happen? So for him, I believe I can't remember what the split was, but I believe the split was like 20, 25% of all revenue because this individual wasn't doing anything but bringing the
Got it.
audience. He wasn't teaching, he wasn't, fulfilling on the offer. He literally was just sending out 3 to 4 emails, making one Facebook Live, he only showed up on the virtual event for like 10 minutes on the first day and just
Got it.
transferred authority over to our team, right? So that's going to be different for everybody because what you want, David, you may say, hey, I want 50-50 of all revenue. You're like, this is my audience, right? And so that was just a personal communication that had to be had there. But I'd say sit down before you even get to that part, start building relationships and truly adding
Got it.
value to people's audience. And then whenever it's time for the ask, sit down and have that conversation. Hey, what would be worth it for you?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I actually wrote down as you were speaking, trust. Like you would have to, in order for someone to do that, they would have to trust you at a
Tremendously.
serious deep level in order to promote you to their audience, and then kind
Yeah,
of
and I
walk
think
away
what
from it.
actually happened in that first scenario, David, as I'm thinking about it, I think that we actually did a free class with no sales to that audience
Yeah, makes
before we
sense.
even did before we ever did the event with the offer at the end. So I think that's why that trust was there, is because we came in, we did a free class, I believe. I wasn't teaching, I was just in the back end helping, making sure all the movements, was logistically set.
Well,
But he came in and added value and created that trust before.
the other thing I want to, I don't know if this is had any bearing as well, but if you go back 5 years, we were in COVID, right? You're a college student. We got COVID starting. COVID was definitely helped a lot when it comes to virtual events. Did that play into it at all as well, or is that just a
Well,
coincidence?
I would say this, because and it may actually be further now. So we started this 2018.
Okay.
So maybe it's further than I'm thinking, man. So I don't even keep up with
So
time.
this was before COVID, and
So it was, yeah,
assuming
it
COVID
was
helped.
before COVID. Now, am I gonna say COVID helped us? Yeah, when in the virtual event space, virtual events like
Yeah.
skyrocketed. So I'm not gonna say that we didn't get any benefit from that. We definitely did. But no, we did. We were doing this beforehand. So we were doing this around 2018, and what it COVID hit 2000. Was
Mid
that
19, I think, right? Going
19?
into
Yeah, something like
20.
that. So we started right before it. But long story short, no, it definitely did help though.
All right, good. So let's jump current now where we're at. And I know one of the questions you had asked me to ask was, are virtual events better than in-person events? Now, I didn't give you my opinion on this, but
Well, go
I've done a
give me
lot
your
of
opinion.
both.
Let me hear it. Let me hear it.
Well, I mean, I was a trainer for Keller Williams for a lot of years, and I was a trainer for Success, and so I've done a lot of in-person events. Now, the challenge with in-person events as an instructor is you have to travel to places, you have to be in hotels, you have to be around your family. So there's that from a
Right.
trainer perspective, but as far as from an audience perspective, I don't know. I like them both. I'm not. I don't. I think a lot of people have been fatigued with all the virtual events since COVID, which is why I
Yeah.
brought it up. And I think a lot of people are looking to start doing more live events. But I'll tell you what, I love a good virtual event. I love going back to a recording of a virtual event, going through it a second time. So anyway, I'm kind of in the middle, but yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
No.
Why is virtual better?
No, I mean, I think that goes to the question of how can we create experiences that has somebody of David's caliber saying, I want to come back. Because if David said, listen, David's a high level guy. If he says, I want to come back to that event was awesome, that's good. So ask yourself, how can we please David? That's going to be the question we leave here with. But no, I would say,
Amen. Well, there you
virt-
go. But
I
yeah,
think, I think, if you compare the two, I personally believe virtual events are just easier barrier to entry, right? So many people are here, you're listening, you're a sales professional, you're a leader of some sort. Maybe you're starting a info product business. There's no like comparison, right? Whenever the barrier to entry when we compare the two, right? You can go and set up a Zoom today and have a virtual event, promote it to your email list, to your Facebook, and be on something tonight, right? I have clients that
sure.
spend 10, 15,000 all the way up to millions dollars for in-person events. I love in-person events for the experience. There's nothing like it. You can't the relationships you build, the
Yeah.
emotions you feel, just the energy you get from being in the room. It's amazing. I'm all for it. But what I've seen is for a lot of people, they let they want to start using events, but they let things stop them from taking action. Oh, I don't have the money and things. Well, there's no excuses with virtual events. Plus, I would say that you have a potential to reach more people through virtual events, right? So like you have no barrier. You could have 5 people in a virtual event all the way up to 2,000. You can fill up rooms faster. But I'm all for in person, but I'll say this. What happens, Dave, something that David we got really good at is using virtual events to fill up our in-person events.
Mm.
So that's something that's worked really well for us right now. We actually have a lady who's running a conference. She has a pretty decent social media following. Okay, she has like 100,000 followers. So I will say that a lot of her, or a good portion of her ticket sales for her conference have come from social media. But at the same time, I do know 50 to 75% of her tickets for her in-person conference has come through virtual events. And I'm talking like 1,600 people conference. So it's not like just 100 people, 50 people, but no, 1,600 people max out a venue in Georgia all through virtual events. So I think they go really well together. If you're here and you want to run in-person events or
So
seminars, I think it
yeah.
could be really good
So
together. But
let's
virtual,
define. Let's define, because I mean, as I'm listening to you, I mean, a free webinar is an example of a virtual event, right?
yep,
A master class, people do them all the time. Technically, it's a webinar, but you just with a different name.
yep,
But then you actually do have live virtual events where somebody pays a couple $1,000 to do a 2-day workshop, right?
yep. Yeah,
So
there's
what? Yeah. So tell us how does your process work? Where, like, for instance, you got 1,600 people to this event. Would that be more like webinars leading up to the
yeah.
event, or yeah? So kind of help us with that process if you could.
Well, let's dive right on in. There's many different types of virtual events, guys. So just know that your situation, what I'm about to talk about and what I'm about to lay out, may be a little bit different and may need to be tailored just depending on your audience and your offer, right? But if you're here and you're selling a mid ticket to a high ticket product of some sort, that could be a done for you service that's a few $1,000s. It could be a coaching program, a certification, something of that sort. What we've been using a lot is a 2 event combo that I'm about to share with you all. And this isn't being like, I don't share this a lot, but I feel comfortable sharing it here. We're using webinars, free webinars, to sell longer virtual event
Mm,
tickets. So let me explain this. So we're running 60 to 90-minute free webinars. We'll bring traffic in from partners, from ads, from our clients list. And what we'll do is we use those 60 to 90-minute webinars to sell tickets to a longer virtual event, because 60 to 90 minutes, you can only teach so much, right? I can, like, here, David, we can only talk about this for 30, 45 minutes and we got to bounce, we got other commitments. But
sure.
what we do is we sell, we focus on the 5-day challenge model. Some of you all may have seen those 5-day challenges online. If you haven't, it's definitely something you should look into, and we'll talk about that. But we sell these 5-day virtual experiences for anywhere starting at $100 all the way up to $1,000, right? And this works really well because people come on those free webinars, and most people are expecting to be sold a $2,000 product, a $3,000 product. But we come in and we say, hey, we have this event. We may bundle up some other programs and like products in there, but we're selling this event for $300, $500 in some cases. And so people jump on it like crazy when they're crafted well. And then we put them in this longer version event, this 5-day challenge, which in simple form here, just for those that never heard of them or seen them, is pretty much like a webinar spread across 5 days, right? You do an hour to an hour and a half class for 5 days straight. It's not all day event, just so you know. It's like we normally do them in the evening. They're on certain topics. And at the end of that 5-day event, we sell a higher tier program. In this case, this lady was selling a conference. So instead of selling a higher tier program at the end of her 5-day challenge, she was selling, a conference combo, right? And so by this time, just to take you through the client journey, that somebody may come in through a Facebook ad, attend your live webinar. So they go from not knowing who you are to kind of knowing who you are in this webinar. They're like, David, is this guy real? Is he not? I kind of like what he's saying on this webinar. And at the end of the webinar, they're like, okay, David seems pretty cool. I'm going to trust him enough to go buy this event ticket and spend 5 more days with him.
Mm.
They attend the 5-day event. Then after, they're like, oh, I love this David guy. This guy's amazing. I love what he stands for. I love what he teaches. And then from there, they're like, I'm ready to buy whatever program he has. And so that's the client journey we've been taking people on for the past year, 2 years. We've kind of changed it over time. You know, obviously what we were first doing 5, 6 years ago is a lot different now, but that's been working really well for us, that acquisition model and that ascension model. But David, does that make
Mm.
sense at all? I know I talked a
Yeah.
lot there.
No, it makes absolute sense. I couple questions I wrote down. Number one is, I know you had said that people expect to be sold a $2,000 to $3,000 event. What we've experienced is that's a challenge where a lot of people don't want to show up because they just think they're going to be sold something, or as soon as you start talking about offer, you see the numbers start to drop off. People just like leave it. I find it strange personally, but that's what a lot of people do. So are you just getting so many people on? Because I know the percentages, and that was my second question. Like the percentage of conversion on these webinars is super low. So you need extraordinary numbers. Or am
Yeah,
I
yeah, I would
dismissing
say
something?
there's 2 parts there I'll not combat, but kinda answer and give you solutions for.
Yeah.
So number 1 is how to get people to stop leaving your live events when you get to the offer, right? And listen, I've been there. Time to make the offer, and you're just like, "Oh, all these people are leaving." Like, it's kinda disheartening. One way to solution for that is asking yourself, "Am I seeding the offer and pre-framing the offer enough prior to the pitch that whenever it's come, they're ready for it?" See, so many
Yeah.
people, they don't even talk about the offer. They don't even see the offer any inside of their presentation, meaning that the offer comes as a surprise. Now, like I said, a lot of people, if they've attended a lot of events, they know an offer is going to come, right? I mean, you and I, we both attended events. We're like, okay, what's the pitch? But why don't you seed that offer and talk about it throughout it? So what a lot of our clients do is at the beginning, some of them just lay all cards out on the table. That's a sales technique of
Yeah.
just, hey, at the very end of this class, there will be a special opportunity for you. So that's one thing. Our not all of our clients do that, but some of them who need that, they will at the very beginning of their virtual event tell people and get it out of the way. Hey, there will be an opportunity. And so that gives people at the very end, they're not like, "Oh, an offer." They're like, "Okay, what is it? What is that gonna be?" And then throughout the presentation, we're seeding, "Hey, this is something I teach inside of my virtual event." Right? That's called seeding the offer. So we'll say, "Oh, I'm just making this up. Let's say I was doing a class on leadership, right? Oh, this leadership principle is what I teach on day 2 of my challenge or in module 2 of my course." And so by the time of it, they've already heard about your course. They've already heard about your event because you were talking about it all through your presentation. Now they're like, how do I get this event? How do I get this course? So number one is, how are you framing it prior to the pitch? Did that make sense before I go into the second one?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we just my experience, we definitely let people know at the beginning that we're going to have an offer at the end, so there's no surprise. I mean, again, I
But
don't I'm horrible at this, which is why I I wanted you on the show, right? Because otherwise, if I was the
well, I
expert,
think
I'd
you're
be
better
on
than,
the
I
other
mean,
side.
dude, you
Um,
host a podcast on sales mastery, so you have to be
yeah.
good.
Well,
You
but
definitely got it.
this is a different getting people on a webinar. I honestly feel like it's a numbers game, to be honest with you. And yeah, so to what you were going to say, the second part of the question, we're just not getting enough people on the webinars to begin with, because we'll sell
Yeah, 100%.
10% of the people on the webinars, but we just don't have enough people, and that's
So what are
one of
you
the biggest
saying for your, like,
challenges.
what are you seeing for, like, your show up rate? I mean, like, if you were doing a webinar, like, what's it look like? How many people are showing up?
So let's say we have 100 people register, we'll have 25 show up, and then out of 25 show up, what maybe one or two
Okay.
buy the
I'm
product,
gonna
right?
let me grab listen, I want to do some math. Can I just step away from the camera? Listen, I know this is very professional. Can I step away and get some paper just for a second? It's right behind my desk right here.
Yeah, help you. Yeah, I love this,
Okay,
man.
cool.
Let's go.
Listen, 'cause I want to break this down and give you all some actionable steps on things maybe that even if you got that from 25 to 40 or 35, like that'd be tremendous. So one second. I'm gonna grab pen and paper real quick. Be right back. Intermission time.
Yeah, well, okay. Be as fast as you can, man. All right. Well, listen, guys, we have Michael Tucker here. He's from Funnel Pros, and he's talking to us today about how to create amazing virtual events. And right now, we're talking about how to fill up your webinars. So this is
Love it.
something that I'm certainly taking notes on. So you should be doing the same thing. It looks like Michael is back. What's going on, man?
All right. Sorry about that, dude. I know very
Oh,
unconventional, but
good.
so listen. So there's a lot we could talk about whenever it comes to show up rates on events, and so that's one thing that a lot of people, have struggled with, and so I understand. Number one, know this: marketing is a numbers game. You and I both would agree that marketing and sales is a number games, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, it's so I'm not going to discount that it is a numbers game, but how can we improve those numbers? So number one is I always look when people come to me and say, "Hey, my show up rate isn't too good. What can I do to improve it?" Number one, we ask, what does what happens between the time they
Well,
register?
before you answer the question, what is a good show up rate? Because my understanding is 30 to 40% is like a great
Yeah,
show
so
up rate.
we see an average. I'm not going to say this is for every client, but for a lot of our clients, we see around 35 to 40%. So
Okay,
that's what I was going to
perfect.
say.
Got it. All
So
right.
35 to 40%. Sometimes it does dip below 30-ish percent ish. But just depends on the audience and what's going on with their tech and things of that nature. So I would say number one, we look at what's happening between the time the client registers for your event leading up to the class. Some people just don't have enough reminders, right? I'm not saying that's you. I'm assuming that you have plenty, right? But for us,
Not as many as some, I'll tell you that. But yeah, there's
right. And the
lately
thing
I've
with this
seen
is,
some people that are sending like yesterday, Michael, we had somebody like I sign up for webinars just to funnel hack for a lot of times, right? I'm sure
I'm the same way.
you do the same thing, right? So
Yep.
this person literally from 3 hours on sent me a reminder. I would say every 30 minutes and then 15 minutes and then 2 minutes
Yeah.
and then we're starting now. I, I was like, wow. I still didn't show
Yeah,
up,
still didn't show
but
up.
he
I
definitely
think
got my
that
attention.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't I think some of that can be overkill, but like for
Yeah,
us, leading up to the event, we have just giving you high level fast. We have 5 days away, 3 days away,
yeah,
2 days away, one day away. But then the day of the webinar, we have the morning of. We have an hour before, we have or like 5, 10 minutes before, we have 15 minutes after, right? So even once the class is started, they could still
mhm.
jump in 15 minutes in. So like it's not only about the frequency, but what are you putting in there? Because listen, if it's just going to be communications, reminder about the class, that's cool. But how can we actually help people and change some of their perspectives, get them to consume some of our material prior to the class even happening? So prior to the class even happening, I
Mm,
may send them a free guide,
that's smart.
a
Yeah.
free ebook, send them a podcast interview I did on a certain topic. Hey, in this class, we're going to talk about how to lead when you're not in charge. Here's a podcast I just did about that. Um, you know, maybe send them other case studies of people. So it's not just reminders. I think that's where people get it wrong. It's like, hey, we want them to get bought into the mission, because they ultimately signed up for your class for a reason. They didn't just sign up for your class just because like, well, maybe they are like me and you, where they're just like trying to hack something, but most of them signed up because they have a certain pain point
I
or
actually
something thing.
want to show up. Like, help me, give me, like, they just didn't give me enough to, like you just said. I think that was a brilliant what you just shared with everybody listening. Like, to me, if they would have sent me an ebook or sent me a guide, that would have been different, and I probably would have checked it out and said, okay, I want to know more what this person's about, and
Yeah.
then make a decision if I want to show up to an 8 p.m. webinar on a Monday night. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, or 8 p.m. Eastern. I don't know what time the webinar was, probably Pacific. But regardless of that, what you just said, I think was a great piece of advice and strategy for our listeners. So thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. You're very welcome. And so I think that's one thing, but one thing that a lot of people forget about, David, is the opportunity after the webinar, right? And so so many people don't have anything in place for after the class ends. And so I think what's really important as well, especially if you're spending money on advertising, is how do we collect people's let me say it this way, how do we get people to watch the replay after, because the replay is still valuable? How we get them to take action afterwards? Because if you have 1,000 people that register for an event, let's say 35%, 350, 400 people show up, which is pretty good for us. There may be an additional 5 to 10% that will watch the replay if you send it to them and craft the communications on the back end. So just know that sometimes people, it can add up between the replay and the live. You may end up getting a 50% show up rate if you have the right framework. So just be very, very cautious about what you're doing prior. Be really really intentional, and then at the after as well. I don't think so many people are like, we need a segment. Did they attend? Did they not attend? Did they watch 10 minutes? Did they watch 30 minutes? And they create all these sequences
Mm,
based upon how long people watch. That's cool, but make it simple. Send people the replay. Remind them about what the opportunity is to work with you, the offer. Don't overcomplicate things. Just remember, ask yourself, how can I maximize the money I'm spending? And those are just two ways that you can do so.
I love it. All right. Well, tell us the best way for people to get in touch with you, Mike.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you guys want to check out our site, I would love to have a personal conversation with you. It's thefunnelpros.com. You're not going to be sold any books or courses or coaching on there, but there is an opportunity for you to book a call with me. So if you're here and you're like, hey, I've been doing webinars, been doing virtual events, and they're just not maybe working well, let's hop into a Zoom and see what we can do to improve them. Or maybe you're here and you're like, hey, I'd like to start. Hop on. I'll give you some strategies you can implement. Just disclaimer, if I feel like you're a potential fit to work within our company and like work with us, I'll let you know. But most times people leave from those calls like with a sheet of paper saying, wow, I have new strategies, new things I can implement. So thefunnelpros.com, David.
I love it. And I'm gonna just go back to the other question because I might have missed it, but why why are virtual events better than in-person events? I'm not sure if I got it, if we got an answer out of that on
Yeah, I
that.
think we got deep into the weeds. So, like I said, I think virtual events are better because of the barrier to, like, there's the least barrier to entry.
Got it.
You can reach more people ultimately at cheaper cost. But then also you can impact more lives. I mean, it's crazy right now. We live in the digital age where, like, if you just think back 100 years ago, nothing could even compare to what we have at our fingertips right now. Still
Mm,
25 years ago, 30 years ago. And so right now we live in the greatest time, David. I truly feel like if you want to make a difference, and David, I know you're passionate. I know you, obviously that's why you're doing this podcast, right? Like if you wanted to reach the most amount of people right now, virtual events is one of the best ways to do it because of leverage of the internet. But then also, this is just fastest way to build rapport with people. Fastest way to build rapport with people. I love in person, like I said. It's definitely a tool in our tool belt that we still use, but it's a whole lot easier to run a virtual event
got
and a
it.
whole lot faster to build your community.
All right. So it really is the ease of it as for a business owner and how seamless it can be, and
And I
obviously
mean, I'm gonna be
cost them
honest, David. I mean,
as well.
you've ran in-person events to sell stuff though, right?
Oh yeah, I've done a
Yeah.
lot. I
I'm
mean,
gonna
I
be
didn't even
honest
do
with you.
virtual events until COVID. I was doing all in-person events. So I think like most
Yeah.
people, right? But yeah, I mean, again, I told you earlier, I'm definitely a fan of virtual. But yeah, I
No,
think
I
what
think
you
when it's built out correctly, and this is one other topic, I think they can convert just as high because I get some people that are saying, well, Michael, my in-person events convert higher than my virtual. I think if they're structured right, like our 5-day experiences, sometimes we convert 20 to 25% of
that's good.
attendees I'm not going to say that's all event, but we just had a client, he just converted like 22, 23% of all ticket holders into a $15,000 program. So I think the conversions can be just as great or better if built, but obviously it comes down to you, right? Are your speaking skills, are your sales skills, are you refining those? Because Virtual events, I'm not going to lie, they're not for the faint of heart. You need to be practicing. You need to
Oh yeah.
hone in your skills, and that's David. I'll applaud you, man. You're great at asking questions. You're great at speaking. So kudos to you for crafting that over the past few years. But there's many skills as we bring this to a close, David. There's many skills that I've been working on over the past years, but I would say like using virtual events, I've realized like communication, sales, and leadership are the top 3 for me whenever it comes to virtual events. Like if you can nail those 3 and really get good at communicating verbally on a virtual screen, you can get really good at sales and selling on stage or virtually like this, but then also you can really take people's heart into mind and you can be a really true charismatic leader, and you can crush it with virtual. So
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, man. I think for, I like, a couple great nuggets, everybody for, if you've been here today listening, I think there's some really good stuff here. I think probably my biggest takeaway from this is just, I think for us, as I think about myself, my journey, Michael, on virtual events, we just kind of bang them out. Reminders, no real value in the reminders. And it's a lot of
right.
times it's people that don't know me yet. So you haven't established that trust level. So I think there's that as well. So I think a lot of things you shared with us will be super helpful for me and my audience. And if somebody, well, we already talked about how somebody can get in touch with you, but like, let's say, and this will be the last question, but let's say how would you help me? Like somebody like me that does webinars, I mean, does a podcast, great sales in person, an absolute assassin, but it's kind of not that great on the webinars. How would you help someone like me? Like, where would you start?
Yeah, great question, man. I think we would sit down and just, if I was to meet with you, like if I went, just the whole process, we'd sit down and look at what's working, what's not working, just lay everything out. So just super transparent. We look at the webinars, look at what's not performing so well, diagnose that. If it is the show up rates, let's fix that. If it's, hey, your show up rates are good, but your pitch is not the best, we would sit down and say, oh, okay, let's look at the pitch virtually. Like what's the difference between your in-person pitches and the virtual that's causing a hang up, right? And so we would sit down and coach you through that pitching experience and that pitching process. And ultimately, so we have an agency, just so you're aware and just so the audience knows, we have a done for you service. So we would say, hey, is it easier? Is it best for us just to plug our systems in for you and we just run it? Or is it more of like, hey, we sit down, we'll just continue consulting you and helping you and your business and your team members get really good at building this machine? So there's several pieces to the puzzle, but long story short, we would analyze and then optimize.
I love it, man. All right. Well, I appreciate it. You and I may have a conversation then, because I'm open minded to talking about it and finding
Yeah.
someone that can help me get to the next level with the virtual event. So I just want to say again, thank you for your time and appreciate you, man.
All right. Thanks, David, for having me on. Peace.